So very luckily for us, the dogs have come out into a beautiful open clearing in this great afternoon light, and isn't this amazing? Now this pack of dogs that we're following is the Sands pack. So this is the pack that Taylor had last night, not the pack I had yesterday morning. It's a completely different pack, and there's one that's come out in the open now. It is absolutely beautiful light on them. It's quite spectacular. I absolutely love the markings on these wild dogs. They all are very unique. Each one's got its own little unique pattern on it that's almost like a fingerprint, and they are incredibly beautiful. So it is quite spectacular to have finally caught up with them. And now the pack that I had a few days ago, well, yesterday morning, sorry, they were very mobile and they moved around like crazy, and we had a very short sighting, so it's quite nice to actually catch up with them when they're resting a little bit and not moving too much. So it's really good to have them, and they're getting to that stage of the day, like I was saying earlier, that they're starting to wake up. You can see they get up and then they move a few paces and then they lie down again, and they get up and move a few paces and then they lie down again. So it's going to be like that. They're going to start moving, and you can see even though they managed to kill this morning and they had that impala carcass that I was talking about earlier, they have digested quite a bit of it. Their bellies are still quite heavy, but they have digested, and they will hunt again should they get the opportunity. So as they're walking along, if they spot a herd of impala in these thickets, they most definitely will start to hunt. And you can see that's more likelihood one of the alphas, or the alpha male. You can see he's a big male, got quite tatty ears, and they normally are the ones that lead. So you'll find the alpha female and alpha male up front, and when they start trotting, the rest of the pack will stand up and move with them. Now in this part of the Sands pack is actually split recently. Most of the puppies are actually still with them. So the pups that were born last year, they are still here. I'm not sure how many there actually are. I haven't seen the Sands pack in ages. The last time I actually saw this pack was probably this time last year. So it's over a year ago that I saw them. And so their composition and the number of adults and puppies that are here has changed quite drastically since I last saw them. But you can see now also when they lie down, look how they actually disappear and how they have completely hidden in this grass. So what I was saying earlier is that if you drive in that long grass, and this grass is quite short in comparison to what we were driving in earlier, had they been lying in that, it would have been quite easy to miss them. So luckily for us, they've come out to a more open clearing. And it's funny because all the vehicles were busy converging onto this open clearing at once to try and see if we could find them, and luckily we did. But look at the size of the ears as well. That's one of my favorite parts of a wild dog, are these massive ears that they have. They utilize those to be able to listen to what's going on. And isn't that spectacular, that dog in the light like that? Absolutely beautiful. Now it's sniffing around, and there was another dog that went there already to check what was going on. Now I wonder if maybe there's some termite activity that is causing a little bit of noise that the dog is investigating, or it's possible that one of the other dogs has maybe scent marked there before, or another pack has scent marked, and that's why it's busy sniffing and smelling. But I think it's actually termites, because you can see it's trying to break open the bark, and it's busy trying to pry it open to see what's inside there. So maybe it's interested in the sound that the termites are making as they move around inside that tree. You can actually see that on the bottom of the screen there, how the damage from the termites is there. But that is absolutely beautiful. Like I say, the light is spectacular at this stage. So I'm really happy that we are here now with them. So Bobby, you want to know, based on size, what kind of dog these would be, what we could compare them to in terms of size? I would say that your best bet would be about the size of a Labrador. Not quite as chunky as a Labrador, a little bit slimmer and thinner, but that is about the size that they are, is a Labrador height. And then, like I say, a little bit more slender. They've got to build more like a greyhound in terms of the way that they're built. Very small, slender animals that rely on being very fit and very healthy to be able to hunt what they need. So they're not huge speed animals, and they're not animals that rely on strength like lions or leopard to pull down large prey items. They work as a pack rather to be able to do that. Now, what I want to do is roll forward slightly. Feeder, indeed, the pattern does help. It's very, very good. Now, you see when they're walking, you can see the pattern quite easily. But as soon as they lie down, that broken pattern actually makes them disappear a little bit. So it just changes up their outline, and so that helps them camouflage a little bit better. But you must remember with wild dogs, when they're hunting, they're not an ambush predator. They're not like the leopards or the lions that are going to stalk in very, very close and try and get as close as possible before they launch this very fast attack. The wild dogs rely on a situation where they'll cause panic and chaos. So let's say they had trotted onto this open area and we had a whole bunch of impalas here. They would have exploded through here and they would have panicked these impalas and made the impalas bombshell outwards. And then what they do is they try and chase, and you'll find multiple dogs chasing multiple different individuals from that impala herd. And eventually in the chaos, what happens is that these impalas turn and run, and because there's so many dogs, they end up running into one of the dogs, and the dog then grabs it and pulls it down, and the rest of the pack arrives, and then they all start to feed. So that's how they hunt. And so camouflage is not the highest priority for them, and that's why those big black ears which stand out in the grass is not too big a problem. Now, the reason why they have big black ears, they've all just gotten up quickly, and I wonder if something has just alerted them. I don't hear anything or see anything around us, but they definitely were quite alert there. You see how they have that sense when one dog reacts that they must all react as a pack, and that ensures that none get left behind or hurt. So quite amazing that they are that tight-knit unit and they pick up cues from one another. Now, you can see the little puppies, they are the ones at the middle there, and then the adults moving off to the right. So that's a little puppy that's coming into frame now. You can see how quickly they grow. But look at the face. You can see the face is very, very young. Now, interestingly enough, with wild dogs, here in the Kruger National Park, everyone will kind of quote as saying that wild dogs will live to 11, 10 years old, but they actually don't. For a wild dog to get to 5 to 7 in the Kruger is actually very old. The average lifespan for a Kruger wild dog is in that range, 5, 6 years old, which is very, very young. And that's part of the reason why their numbers are not recovering very quickly. They unfortunately get attacked by a number of different predators, so they have a lot of problems with hyenas when they're denning, lions, leopard, and then obviously they are very susceptible to disease which is passed on by domestic animals. So in these reserve areas that we're in, we do have boundaries where there are villages and there are dogs that run around there, and unfortunately some of those dogs have rabies or canine distemper, which is lethal to a pack of dogs. And the reason why it's so lethal to them, and maybe not as much to things like a leopard, is because the dogs are very social and they're constantly in touch with each other, grooming, licking, and that causes them to pass on disease very, very fast, which inhibits their numbers quite quickly. But they are beautiful. I absolutely love dogs. I know a lot of people are not a fan of them, but for me they are. Look at the male. So Claire, you're wondering if all wild dogs have the same pattern or if each one has a specific pattern. Well, yes, they do have a specific pattern. As I was saying earlier, they have their own fingerprint. So if you look at these two dogs lying here, you can see the female, which is lying at the back side. She has a very big white patch between her shoulder blades. Now, if we come across to the male, between his shoulder blades, you see it's just little small white patches around those shoulders. So it's completely different markings there. And all the other dogs will have varying patterns of this beige, black, and white. So they all look a little bit different. And that's how they recognize one another, and also for us, how we can recognize which packs we're looking at and who the individuals are. Now, this pair that we see lying here is the alpha pair. So it's the alpha male on the left and the alpha female on the right. You can see they're slightly older dogs by their tattered ears that they have, and even the muzzle is starting to go a little bit gray. So these dogs are probably 4 or 5 years old already, and they will be the ones that lead the pack. And he looks as though he's had a long day, doesn't he? He's looking as though, I'm tired, I don't really want to wake up now, but the sun is in my eyes and it's all a little bit too much. A very sad face, my boy. Don't be so sad. You've got a nice full belly and a lady next to you. You should be happy. You can see the grey that I was talking about on the muzzle on her. And the flies must be driving them crazy. When you've got such large ears, these flies get into gets into the ears and really drives these guys crazy. You can imagine lions and leopards, they have it bad, but when your ear is that big and that sensitive to sound, it must be very, very, very irritating indeed. Now, our comms here on Arathusa are not spectacular, so I know that Lou did ask me a question about the alpha male dying, who will take over, but I did not get who asked the question. So Lou, if you can just repeat that for me. So Lauren, you are asking if any of the alphas die, which one will take over. So if either a male or a female will take over, which one will it be? Generally it's from within the pack, so you'll find that there will be a secondary female, a beta female, that does actually breed sometimes. So even though it's normally just the alpha male and alpha female, the beta female will breed at times too, and you'll get a secondary litter. So if the alpha female had died, the beta female will just pull into her place, and a secondary female will then come up into the beta female status. With the alpha male, if he dies, either a higher ranking male within the pack will then join up and become the alpha male, or you might find another male that is distributed out from another pack comes in and joins and takes over as the alpha. But it does happen quite regularly, and I actually saw in a different pack down in the south of the reserve one of the alphas being killed by a lioness, and the male was killed, and it didn't take long. It was within a few weeks a new dog had assumed that role, and it was one of the males from within the clan that had taken over and become the alpha dog. But aren't their ears just funny? Just don't ever stop, do they? Fidgeting all the time. And it's quite like a wild dog. The wild dogs are never very still. They're not like the lions or the leopards that can pass out and sleep for long periods of the day. These guys are always up to something, and even when they're resting and sleeping, they seem to be quite twitchy. The light on them is absolutely spectacular though. Right, so we're going to stay with these dogs a little bit longer, and we're going to see, hopefully, if they're going to get up and maybe start hunting for us. And while we do that, let's go back across to James and see how he's doing on his bushwalk.
How I'm doing is that we're on our way home, and if you look over there, before I fall in a hole, you can see that the sun is sinking gently over the western horizon, so we're heading north towards home. We did see a buffalo again, just round the corner, the same one that we first saw, and Herbert is just watching out from there and seeing that he hasn't come to investigate us. And here we go through some very thick bush. Now, before I went away, this grass would have been about knee-high, a few things thigh-high. Now it's up to my chest in many places, and that means, of course, that there are going to be many ticks around. But for some reason today I have failed to pick any up, which is excellent. I don't know if you remember my last walk before I went on leave. I was so covered in them that I was convinced I was going to spend my entire leave sitting trying to recuperate from tick bite fever, but no, luckily that did not happen. So we're just getting around where this buffalo was, and then we'll stop and find some biology to have a look at. Right, I think we're safe over here. Right, we're okay. Now, let us go along with the sort of principle of thinking to ourselves that if there's a Waltheria bush, there will be something entertaining in it. Let us pick this Waltheria bush and see if we can't find something here. Oh, and while we do that, I'm just going to tell you all that I'm very upset that none of you have noticed my new outfit. New shoes, new shirt. No one's commented. Sometimes I don't know why I bother. Thanks everyone. Louise says she's checking Twitter now. Hasn't seen any comments. I'm afraid this Waltheria bush is not delivering. Ah, here we go. Herbert's found something there. What have we got, Herbie? It was a jumping spider. It was, or it is? Ah. Is it on here? There it is. It's underside. Can you see it there? It's not a spider, it's a weevil. It's a little weevil. Let me just move it so I can see it. Oh, it's gone. It's a little weevil making its living on this WildEarthTV plant along with a caterpillar. I told you it would deliver, and it has indeed. There is a little caterpillar growing on the WildEarthTV bush. It's probably one of the acrias. They like to live on WildEarthTV on account of the fact that it sequesters hydrogen cyanide. Hydrogen cyanide, which of course is not very good for you if you eat it. It results in a condition known as death, which no one really wants. Good, there we are. Put him back there. You can see how long the grass is. The Pogonathra squarosa, or herringbone grass. Thank you, Bobby. You say you haven't seen my shoes. Well, I'm going to show them to you, Bobby, because you, of all of our viewers, have shown an interest. Behold, they're in that sort of new phase at the moment, so they don't look particularly bushy or wonderful, but there they are. They're giving me blisters, as all good new shoes should. Thank you, Bobby. Let us carry on. I'm very pleased that the wild dogs have been found. It is excellent news. But we're heading back out onto the road because we need to now make tracks for home, as the sun has now set. Careful there, Herman. Do not fall over. Let's just have one last look over here. Here we go. Just next to my stick there is a bug, and it's feeding on this hare's tail bush. And the hare's tail genus I've forgotten. It's something like Cryptophagia or something like that. Cryptophagia augustifolia is the specific name. I quite like the name augustifolia. And this bug seems to be drilling into the flowers and drinking what little sap there is. Every little thing out here has got something that wants to eat it. Ooh, here's something else. It is absolutely astounding. I'll tell you what. Stay that side, Herman. It's just over here. There's a little... You see my finger there? I don't know what that is. This is where we need the microscope, of course. Can you see it, Herman?
I can.
I don't know what it is. I think it's definitely an insect of some sort with red eyes. We'll call it Cyrus. As I say, the WildEarthTV never fails to deliver. And then there is a spider. Now, how the spider survives in anything other than a vacuum, I cannot imagine. Can you see my fingers? There is a spider roughly 0.5 millimeter long, living in between the two digits of Digitaria eriantha, and it's in the same family as the golden orb-web spider. We know that, of course, because it has made itself an orb web between the two digits of this grass culm. All the orb-web spiders live in the same family. Isn't it amazing that that one spider, 1 millimeter long, is the same family as the golden orb-web spider? I think that's rather fantastic. Good. Let's carry on. Okay, we're going to make tracks towards quarantine at quite a speed now to try and get there before it gets dark. While we do that, David is somewhere knocking about. I'm not sure what he's found this time. It isn't elephants.
Thank you, James. Well, the sun is setting in the sky. Myself and Brian, we've been very determined this afternoon to find leopard, or at least some tracks. We've just checked the twin dams, where we found yet again more elephants, which I'm not complaining about. I love elephants. And a nice large herd of, a bachelor herd of impala. But right now we have made the decision to make our way towards the hyena den, where we're hoping to maybe get a glimpse of the cubs. I did see some fresh hyena tracks just now, and with Brian guiding me, we should be there soon, and we're hoping to see a hyena, of course. It's very windy here, quite windy and bumpy. Brian, straight on. Alright, so we're going to go straight through this section. Well, the wind has calmed down and the weather could not be better. Perfect warm temperature. The wind is almost non-existent. Maybe a light breeze. I know Taylor's been wishing winter upon all of us, which I don't think is very fair. I'm definitely a summer child. Turn it up, I love to burn. I'll never complain about the heat because I don't like the cold. And so we are definitely enjoying this warm Sunday afternoon. Right, no tracks at the moment. We're going to keep on making our way towards the hyena den. Of course, with the sun setting in the sky and things starting to get darker, this is a period of high activity in the bush, because you get to witness the change of shifts as diurnal animals start to close down and nocturnal species become active. And so this is definitely one of the best, just going over some roots there, this is definitely one of the best times of the day to be on safari. And so we're hoping to get lucky. Ooh, it's getting dark now, might actually have to bring out the spotlight. Left. Right, we're at a dam now. What have we got there? Oh, Brian, did you get that? It seems to be a grey-headed kingfisher. He just went for a splash. Now he's sitting on that perch over there. I'm sure he's going to start to preen his feathers. Oh, he's off. Just over there, bro. Well, we have 10 different species of kingfisher in South Africa. And these kingfishers that we're seeing here in the Sabi, you actually don't find in the Eastern Cape. The common species that I tend to see are pied kingfishers, half-collared kingfishers, giant kingfishers, and even pygmy kingfishers. But here in the Sabi Sands, we have the privilege of seeing different species, like this one, and of course one that is really impressing me is the woodland kingfisher, which has, I think, a very beautiful call. There we go, preening the feathers now. Okay. On second thought, having a closer look now, this looks like it could be a woodland kingfisher. Perhaps a juvenile, which I'm not accustomed to. Feel free to correct me. You can send your answers or thoughts through to, or just your answer with hashtag Safari Live. That kingfisher's taking care of his feathers, which is very important for a bird. Having a splash like that, hitting the water hard, can help to dislodge parasites. Finding a nice perch with a good view. Obviously this kingfisher still needs to look out for predatory birds. And I can start to take care of his feathers. Okay, Brian, as much as I love this kingfisher, I think that we should hit the road again. I'm very keen to go to that hyena den and see if we've got any activity there. Okay, so we're going to move on now. We're going to head towards that hyena den and hopefully there is some activity there. We're going right here, Brian? Yep. Okay, we're moving on. See some tracks in the road. Alright, we're going to send you back to Tristan, who has the wild dogs.
Indeed we do, and things have not gotten too active just yet. We've had a few up and down. The alpha pair had a little scent marking session. You can see the male is busy sniffing now where the female urinated, so they have been doing a bit of scent marking, and maybe he's going to do some more for us. Let's have a look. There we go. He's busy just marking territory, so small little bit of urine that's come out there just to mark over where the alpha female marked, and to make sure that if any other wild dogs come here, that they know that this is this pack's territory. And it's a funny way that he does it. You see, he doesn't really cock a leg. He tries to, but he gets a little bit distracted and just kind of urinates between the two of them. It's quite interesting to watch, but there really hasn't been too much movement. Now the rest of the pack has been up and down, and the alpha pair have been sleeping, but now I see the alpha pair is up, and that generally could mean a sign that the pack is going to start getting up and going. When the alpha pair start to move, particularly the alpha male, then the rest of the dogs tend to start following. Are you curious, my boy? He seems to be coming a lot closer. Now you can see he's got a little gash on his backside there. Ah, Jason Bag. Well, Jason, hello, how are you? I'm actually sitting in the sighting with your other friend, Armand. So Jason is a guy that I used to work with in this area, and he wants to know whether these dogs are close to Boerbean Pan. Jason, they're actually on Magic Willie Open, so you will know exactly where that is, and it's great to have you watching. And Jason is a good friend of mine and an absolute gentleman and an amazing guy. He's a very, very good guide as well, and he's now moved back to Johannesburg, so we don't see him nearly as much as we used to, but he's a really, really wonderful individual. So nice to know that you're watching, Jason. I hope you're well, hope things are good, and I hope you're enjoying the wild dogs. He always used to say that when we find these kind of things that we were taking a wicket, because he and I loved cricket, so we used to talk about taking a wicket, and that we used to bowl these in-swinging Yorkers if he found a leopard. So it's fond memories to hear your name, Jason, and like I say, I hope you're very well. Now, you see how the male always goes and lies with the female, eh? Now, I'm sure at this time of the year, this female is going to start coming into estrus cycles. It's about the right time that they should start mating. End of March, beginning of April, to be in time for the sort of May, June, July denning season. So that's maybe why he's lying so close to her, making sure that no other male sneaks in there at any point and gets lucky. So he's lying right behind her and keeping all the others at bay at the moment. Now, there's two that are having a little game in the background there as well. They're busy playing and biting one another. So games will start as it gets cooler now. The sun has dipped below the Drakensberg Mountains to our west, and look at that, there's a little game that's playing. Now those are two younger dogs. Those are from last year's litter, and one is not interested in playing. It's just this one that wants to cause mischief. But enough mischief causing, maybe we'll wake the rest of them and we'll see them getting up and going. Nope. And back to sleep again. Like I say, they do have quite full bellies, so I was hoping that maybe something would come out close by that they would be able to start hunting. But with bellies like this, and the fact that it's going to be a very bright moon tonight, so in the eastern side we should start to see a moon coming up in the next, I would say, 15 to 20 minutes, and when that moon then comes up, it's going to be incredibly bright tonight. So even though the wild dogs are more diurnal than they are nocturnal, in bright full moon times, these dogs will hunt. So they know that they can wait for it to get much cooler before they can then start trotting around and looking for food. The only problem is if they hunt in the night, is that hyenas are very active, and hyenas and wild dogs are mortal enemies. They will always be fighting with one another and going after one another. So that's why they will try and avoid hunting at night, so that they don't have to compete with the hyenas nearly as much. Right, so we're going to stay with them a little bit longer, and I'm hoping that that moon rise is going to come up. And because the moon is going to start rising, it means that it's starting to get a little bit dark, which means that James and Herman, our two smaller presenters, given that they are so small, we should not really be leaving them out in the darkness. So we're going to go over to them so that they can say goodbye and get back to safety.
Yes, no, small people and in fact big people shouldn't be out in the dark. We're just walking along quarantine clearings and we can see some elephant tracks on top of our tracks from this afternoon. Here's Herbert's rather large foot there, and then here you can see where the elephant has walked, and we think he's probably down having a drink at the pan, which we're not going to walk to because it's getting a bit dark. So thank you very much for coming on our walk with us. Thank you, Herman, for your first walk. Herman says his shoulders are now numb, so we're going to go and take his pack off. We'll try and convince Louise to massage them for him. If she won't, I'm sure someone will. So until tomorrow, tomorrow's sunrise safari, from Herman and Herbert and James, it is a very fine goodbye.
Well, I'm glad James and his new shorts and shirt and shoes are mobile back to camp. We don't want anything happen to our dear James. He is getting a little bit older in the tooth, and his eyesight is probably not what it used to be, so it's better to get him home. The wild dogs are still very flat. They're still very sleepy. There's not too much happening with them at the moment. I think they are in a food coma at this stage. It's been one of those days. It's also been quite warm today, so maybe they've had a tough time digesting all of this big piles of impala that they ate and in dealing with that hot sun. So it's now time just to have a rest and enjoy this nice cool evening. The other nice thing is that the wind has really died down now and the temperature is absolutely perfect. So even for the dogs, you can see none of them are really panting. They're all actually looking really good. So they'll be quite happy dogs. And as I was explaining before we went to James, that the moonlight is going to help with them moving around tonight as well, which is good. But it's amazing how they move around. It's a little bit, and then they just find an area that they like. So Hunter, an interesting question, because you want to know how far wild dogs will hunt from a den site. Now, it's very dependent on the amount of food available close to the den site. So sometimes wild dogs will go quite far if they're not finding what they're needing, but generally they hunt quite close, because what they've got to do is they've got to get out, they've got to hunt, they've got to find the food, and then they've got to get back before they can feed it to the young ones. And while they're doing that, obviously the stomach acids are starting to digest, so they don't want to be miles and miles and miles away. So generally they hunt quite close. In the areas that I've worked with, we've had wild dog dens. Generally they're hunting within about, I would say, a 3 to 4 kilometer radius around the den. They don't go very far at all, and they then kill. And you'll find sometimes that they'll even split into different parties, and some will go hunt and they'll feed and they come back to feed the young ones while other ones go off and hunt. So they do fracture a little bit, but they don't go typically too far. Like I say, they also have to be quite close, because while they're away hunting, generally they leave an individual just to watch over the young ones when they're still small. And when they do that, if something arrives like a lion or hyenas, that individual will vocalize, and they need to be close enough that the rest of the pack can come in and try and save those little ones before they get killed. So it is very impertinent for them to be a little bit closer rather than further away. But I see every now and then that they're poking up their heads. I think that they know that it's that time of the day where the hyenas are going to start getting up, and they're just checking around to make sure that they don't get caught off guard while they lie out in the open. But it's amazing to have watched how they've moved from very long grass to more open section I'm sure it's because of the amount of insects that are in the grass. When we were walking last night and I got home, I was scraping off layers of pepper ticks as we moved, and so these guys, I'm sure, have been covered in ticks, and it's probably a lot easier to be lying out on the sand away from those ticks where they're not being bugged nearly as much. Also, without the wind or any sort of movement of the grass hitting you in the eyes or around the nose and sensitive areas, it's much more comfortable. Because they are not using their legs as much as what a lion or a leopard would be to be able to pin an animal, these guys tend to bite and then pull down and start to feed on that animal alive. They actually don't need much, very, very sharp claws. They can have the blunted claw as opposed to what the cats need that sharp claw to hook into the skin of an animal and be able to then pull it down and get it to the ground. So their foot structure is very similar to a domestic dog. It's a slightly narrower footprint, but it again depends on the species of domestic dog. There are some domestic dogs that will have a very similar track or print to what the wild dogs will have. Now you may notice that all of these dogs have a very white tip to their tail. Now that white tip becomes really handy when they are moving. When these dogs run, they'll often go through long grass areas and it's quite difficult to see one another. So they just lift that tail, and that white is a massive beacon for the rest of the pack to be able to see that white, and they then move in and are able to then join up back together again, particularly after a hunt, or if they've been successful with hunting and one has grabbed an animal, then the tails all go up and it's a frenzy and they all get there and they can then see one another. So it's a really nice contrast to the rest of their body. The rest of their body is a little bit more mottled and camouflaged, but those big white tails just go across to the left. There's going to be a game that's going to be played there. There we go. So that one was just trotting in, and now there's a bit of biting going on. So I always love when the dogs start to do this, and I'm hoping that they start to stand up and they rear up on their back legs, and it's almost like two T-Rexes fighting. Miniature T-Rexes, but T-Rexes, they go up on their back legs and they play and they wrestle and they actually stay up for quite long. So I'm hoping that they will do that just now, but for now it's rolling around time, biting each other's ears. That's also a favorite game if you're a wild dog, is to grab an ear and pull it and cause a bit of trouble. So look at the two of them having a nice little game together there, and this is all part of social bonding. So even though they are biting one another, they're just bonding with each other and making sure that they know if they do get separated that this is part of my pack and my family, that they can then rejoin and make sure that they're not chased away. That one's had enough. There's enough being bitten and being pulled by the ear. Time to move off a little bit. They've got such character, these animals, and I know why Brent loves them and why he considers them to be his favorite animal, because they are full of character, and they are actually one of my favorites too. I really do love leopards, but the dogs, in terms of a spectacle and in terms of just the way that they cooperate together and the fun that they tend to have, they really are quite something, and they're really entertaining to watch. I know this afternoon they've been quite stationary, but there's been lots of little nuances here and there where they've bitten one another and they're playing with one another, and there's been a little bit of cuddling with nose rubbing. So it's quite special to watch this family bond and to watch them move around. Or you could just be like that one and lie right on your back. I think there will be many a staff member that's going to be like that tonight in the DRC. Matsuri, you want to know how long the dogs will stay at a den before their pups are able to start joining in the hunting? Well, there's two different sides to that. So how long they stay in the den site is very dependent on the number of predators around. They will actually move dens if they feel like the den has been compromised, but in an ideal world it's generally about 3 to 4 months that they are den bound. So they stay in the den. From there they then start to move with the pack but get left behind when the pack starts to hunt. So if they're moving and all of a sudden they spot something, the young ones will lie down and the rest of the pack will go off chasing. If they kill something, they'll come back and call those young ones and take them in. So it only really starts to actually influence hunting behavior and start to actually get included in hunts when they reach about 7-8 months old. That's when they're almost fully fledged and basically contributing to the pack. And if you think that these dogs are only going to be alive, most of them, for 5 years or so, it's 8 months is a fifth of their life. It's a pretty long period to be an adolescent. Now, I've also heard some good news on the radio. It sounds like the Nkahuma Pride and one of the Birminghams are up and moving off Simbambili. They're starting to move in a northeasterly direction, which will be towards our side. Now, I don't know if they're going to cross in the time that we still have this afternoon, but it might be worth, if Dave's around, to go and check up towards the Weirtela Access Triple M junction, because those lions should pop out there this evening sometime. It would be absolutely amazing if the Birminghams and Inkahuma lions did show face. They've been a little bit scarce the last few days, so it would be really nice to see them. So I'm hoping they do pop out, but it might be worth Dave just going to go and check there. So, James, the size of a wild dog pack, it might have an effect on the distance that they travel. It's more about food availability. So the bigger the pack, the more food that they need, which means that they've got to spend a lot of time chasing, and they've got to find a lot of food. A smaller pack, they can survive on an impala here and there, whereas a pack of 40, they're going to be eating multiple impalas every single day. And so for them, they're going to actually have to cover much more ground trying to find enough food for them. So it's just dependent on food availability. In the Sabi Sands, we're very, very fortunate that we have a system that is very high population of prey species. So in this area, there's a lot of impala, a lot of steenbok, a lot of duiker, and they can hunt all of those. And so they actually don't have to move too far. This particular pack in the last 3 days has moved all of probably a kilometer. They haven't moved very, very much at all. But if you go into parts of Kalahari, let's say, or drier, more arid areas where there's not that high density of prey animals spread out like they are here, you'll find that the dogs can probably do much bigger distances, and their territory size is going to be massive. You'll end up with territories that are probably the size of the Sabi Sands for one pack, or maybe even bigger, whereas here the territories tend to be a little bit smaller. Currently in the Sabi Sands, we are seeing at the moment, if we count the dispersal packs, we are seeing now 6 different packs of wild dogs in the Sabi Sands, so that's quite a high number. And if you had to, like I say, go into the Kalahari area, which is the sort of northwestern side of South Africa, into Botswana, where it's a desert, arid conditions, there you would find that there would probably be only one pack in that same size area, if that. So it's a very, very, very different system. So it's more sort of food availability than pack number size, pack size number. Oh, got a bit tongue-tied there. Now, the thing is that what you will find is it's much like lions. If the pack gets too big with the amount of food, then you'll find that the pack will split. There will be younger males and females that will distribute out to go and see if they can find any signs of food, as well as to find and create their own pack. So it does happen quite a bit. We always used to think that packs were very settled, but they're not. There is a lot of movement amongst the packs. A very good friend of mine is the researcher for the wild dogs in the Kruger National Park, and he tells me about the movement of these dogs, and it's absolutely incredible. It's very difficult sometimes to actually know how to follow them. They move and they interchange between packs a lot. Now, I don't know if you guys saw that wild dog that was right in the front running up the road had a big gash on its ear. So the one right in front there has got a big gash, and the alpha male has a gash on his bum. Now this pack has had 2 run-ins in the last 2 mornings with 2 hyena clans. They've had big fights. They've been fighting away, and so that is in all likelihood caused maybe by a hyena that's grabbed this wild dog while the rest of the dogs were trying to defend it. So they have had a few run-ins, but they have definitely become interested in something. Those 2 dogs got up and walked up the road. Maybe they spotted an impala moving in the distance somewhere, or they heard something that they were just coming to check and make sure that they don't need to worry about anything. They see the one is now starting to come back, so whatever it was, they have not too much interest in it. So Rob, all the way from New Jersey, you want to know whether separate wild dogs will compete for territory and whether they'll fight with one another over it. Indeed they will. Wild dogs are very territorial, so they have an area and they will defend that quite aggressively from other wild dogs. They will make sure that they keep other wild dogs at bay. And I've actually seen this particular pack and the pack that I saw yesterday morning have a very big fight. They chased one another around. There was biting, there was vocalizing, and it was complete warfare. And then the next few months, neither one of them actually came back to this area. One went way north into the Manyeleti and the other went south into the Sabi Sands area. But you can see they've gotten very alert now, so something is definitely maybe scared these dogs is what I would say. Is their demeanor is now very alert. They're not so much hunting. You can see they're all getting up to move now. So I think they're a bit concerned that there's something around. Maybe they picked up the sound of a hyena moving somewhere in the distance, and with the vehicle now moving, they think that maybe the hyenas are coming in as well. So that could be why that they're so alert as to what's going on. There's some of them are starting to play again. Oh, and might be a blessing in disguise. There's going to be another one I think that's going to come and greet. But these two, look at them. They're having the most marvelous time. Typical youngsters. When you're a young teenager, it's all about playing and wrestling and causing trouble with one another. And this is all valuable for later in life. These guys are going to utilize this when they try and wrestle an animal down to the ground, or if they have to defend themselves from things like hyenas and lion and leopard. They will be able to use their biting and turning, and they'll be a lot more agile. And also they're training themselves. They're getting stronger necks and muscles around the shoulders by doing this. So it's all very, very important. Oopsie, that one just got a bottom in its face. Now, it is getting to that time where it's starting to get quite dark, and it's going to be a little bit too dark for us to stay with them for too much longer. So we're probably going to spend another 5 or so minutes with them and try and see if that moon is going to rise in the background. Reese, you want to know how intelligent wild dogs are? Well, I can tell you that they are very intelligent. I've watched wild dogs hunting. I've watched wild dogs in ambush situations and situations where they've fought with hyenas, where they've made the hyena even look quite stupid by running around it and using the pack to attack from different angles. So they are quite intelligent animals. They know what's going on. Their biggest downfall, though, is unfortunately when they feed. Now, when they feed, they're not very intelligent. So if you just had to find something like a leopard will be quite stealthy when it feeds. So it will drag its kill into a thicket, and it will chew and eat quite quietly. Whereas these guys, when they feed, it's just absolute pandemonium, and everybody's in and shouting, and there's lots of little giggles and noise coming from them, and that attracts a lot of other predators. Other predators hear that, and they know the wild dogs have got food, so they're going to come in and they're going to try and start attacking them. So that's probably a sign that they're not that intelligent around food. But in terms of their daily existence and moving around, they're very susceptible to the environment. They have incredible senses. So their ears are massive. They trap a lot of sound with those ears. Good sense of smell, good eyesight, and they often spot predators long before you do. I've followed wild dogs on multiple occasions and seen them chase leopards up trees, and they spot the leopard long before we ever do. So they are quite intelligent when it comes to that. And then, like I say, the way that they hunt and the way that they are able to work out that this panic tactic that they use is beneficial for them and makes them quite successful in terms of gaining food and keeping the pack alive. Now, it's interesting to know that I was talking to Grant, and he was telling me, who is the wild dog researcher, and he was telling me about the success rates of wild dogs. Now, everybody always thinks that wild dogs are the most successful predator in terms of the fact that they kill a lot of animals. While this is true, they do kill a lot, and in terms of the number of kills that they make, it's probably a lot more than other predators, but their success rate is actually not that very good. It's about as good as what you would see from a leopard. They have about a 40% success rate. It's just that they chase so many different animals that they're able to then catch one, and that is then deemed a feeding session. So they're able to caught food in the morning or the afternoon hunt, but they've failed maybe 4 or 5 times before they've actually caught the meal that they're looking after. So in terms of if you had to break it down into individual hunts and what constitutes an individual hunt, they're actually not very successful. But in terms of a hunting session, they normally are very, very successful. So shows a little bit of intelligence too. Alright, so like I say, we're probably going to be leaving these wild dogs fairly shortly. I'm going to sit for another 5 minutes just to see if this moon does indeed come up over them, because I think it will be quite spectacular. But if it doesn't within the next 5 minutes, then I think we're going to leave them be and let them enjoy the coolness of the night. But while we do that, let's go across to David and see how he's doing.
Well, it's getting dark now, but we've just got some very exciting information. We've heard that lions are crossing from Sibombele into the Djuma section. So we're pinning it along this road and we're hoping to get there before we lose them. We've got all our lights on, the brights are on, and we're going to get there as quickly as possible and hopefully get some lions. This time of the evening there's a lot of small insects which myself and Brian have been capturing with our eyes, and also I think I've eaten one or two as well. Midges, or in South Africa we call them muggies. Not very pleasant to have in your eye. Need to pay attention to the road. Driving quickly like this, we never know what's going to jump out. The lion's on the move. The best thing to do is get there quickly. Sean asked, how can you identify a male lion's call? Well, you can never put a lion in a box. Oh no, wait. Sean's asked, can I produce a male lion's call? Well, wait, that sounded like a, I don't know, an angry elephant maybe. Definitely not a male lion, Sean, but that was it, eh? I'm gonna have to try and find you a real male lion. One will go. I think that sounded like a constipated elephant, but I'm not a lion. Thank you, Sean. Right, well I pay attention on the road as we're racing towards these lions. We're going to switch back to Tristan and here's some wild dogs.
So as I wanted, there above the tree line is a beautiful full moon that is just coming over these wild dogs, and isn't that spectacular? So those of you that love to do screenshots, this is a prime time to do a screenshot. You can send them through to us at #SafariLive. It would be great to see some of those. That is an incredible scene. Now I know Taylor had it yesterday, but I don't think I can get tired of a full moon over a pack of wild dogs. That is quite special. Isn't that incredible? Now you can also hear in the distance that the nocturnal birds are starting. I can hear a scops owl calling. Very far away, but it is calling, and those sounds of the night are starting to come up. But isn't that spectacular? Look at that. That is amazing. I think that is one of my favorite wild dog sightings. That full moon is absolutely spectacular. Now tomorrow the full moon is going to be amazing, because this afternoon the full moon has come up after the sun is set, whereas tomorrow the full moon will come up pretty much at the same time. So it's going to come up as a big orange ball over that horizon, so it will be far prettier than what we're seeing now. But isn't that spectacular? You can just see it now perfectly coming over that ridge of trees, and even the wild dogs are admiring the view. Look at them all turning towards the full moon. Isn't that incredible? Well guys, I can tell you what, you guys complete the picture as well. So Diane, your question is quite relevant because you want to know where they're going to sleep tonight. Right where we see them right now. So this is probably in all likelihood, if they're not going to use the full moon and move around, then they'll in all likelihood rest here. It's nice and open here. They'll be able to see any sort of hyena or lion or leopard coming through this open grass, and they'll then be able to bolt away. So generally they find a nice open section, and that is where they spend the night. In dark nights, they'll find even bigger open clearings than this. So where the airstrip is on Arathusa, that's a perfect place for wild dogs to go sleep during the night, and they'll then lie there. And then as soon as there's that first little bit of light coming over the horizon, they're up and moving already. So that's how they do it. If there's the den site, then like you say, they will go back to the den site and they sleep there for the night. Now, as much as I would love just to sit here and to admire this beautiful view with these wild dogs and the full moon, it is very, very dark, and I do not want to attract any attention to these wild dogs and attract any hyenas by being here. So I think it's that time of the evening where we are going to probably leave the wild dogs and leave them to themselves. We're definitely going to try and come again tomorrow morning and see if we can find them. So while we get going and go and see what else we can find this evening, let's go across to David and see how the lion search is going.
Alright, our lion search is not going very well. We're in the right area, but we have not managed to find any tracks. Got the lights out, spotlights operational. We're making our way towards a dam now. Of course, lions love to set up ambushes close to dams. Of course, when animals come to drink, it's a perfect time for lions to surprise them. But the bush is very thick. We haven't managed to find any tracks, and so all we can do is push on and keep searching. It's a lovely warm evening and the moon is rising. Perfect weather. Oh! It's not a lion, but it will do. Okay, let's not approach him too quickly. I don't want to startle him. In front of us it looks like we have a giraffe. From here it would appear to be a male giraffe. He's moving off. We're going to slowly approach. Don't want to upset him. The Afrikaans name for a giraffe is kameelperd, meaning camel horse. So the giraffe walks with 2 legs on the left and 2 on the right, 2 on the left, 2 on the right. But when it runs, it swaps over to 2 in the front and 2 at the back, and it tends to have the gait of a horse. Brian, you might get an awesome silhouette shot of that giraffe disappearing. Kameelperd. Walks like a camel, but it runs like a horse. Okay, we've lost that giraffe, and so we're going to push on now and see if we can find those lions, or at least find their tracks, and that would give us an indication of where they're going. Let's get my spotlight out again. The moon is so bright, I'm sure as soon as it's over the horizon, it's going to provide a lot of light for us. Oh, bird just popped out in front of me. It looked like a thickney. Bush is getting very dense over here. Checking the road for tracks. I don't see anything. Wow, I can hear frogs. David wants to know, is a giraffe a target for lions? That's a good question. Yes. Lions, if they can cause a giraffe to panic and fall or trip and slip, then they have a chance of getting to it. But a giraffe is actually quite a powerful and agile creature, with a male weighing just over a ton and sometimes standing at 5.5 meters tall. They are more than capable of defending themselves. If giraffes see lions, they will actually move towards them. Sorry, it's just very bumpy here. Let me slow down a bit. If a giraffe sees a group of lions, a pride, they will move towards them. I've seen giraffe approach lions on a kill and stand no less than 5 meters away from them and just stare down at those lions. And that's because if the giraffe can see the lions, it can defend itself. They karate chop with the front legs, and they'll even kick out to the sides with the back legs. So a wise lion has a healthy respect for giraffe. But if they can cause the giraffe to somehow lose his footing, we've got some crowned lapwing taking off in front of us. If they can get a hold of the giraffe's throat and neck area, then they've got it. And so quite often I've actually seen giraffe missing tails. So they just have a stump. And what causes that is sometimes a lioness will chase after a giraffe. Giraffe will panic and run away, and she will bite right up onto the base of the tail and hang on there, gripping with her forelimbs and using her back limbs to try and trip up the giraffe. The giraffe will respond by bucking and kicking and then run right into some very thick vegetation and try and brush that lion off. And sometimes, unfortunately, with the powerful jaws of a lion, it can cause the giraffe to lose a bit of its tail. But I think it's a sacrifice that a giraffe is willing to make to live another day. Okay, well, we continue our search for lions in this thick, dark bush. You're going to go back to Tristan. Let's see what he's got.
Well, what we have is one of the most spectacular scenes that I've seen in a long time. There are these beautiful big dead knob thorns that are making this eerie, beautiful moonrise, and in between all of them is that big golden sphere of a moon that is coming up over the horizon. It is absolutely spectacular. I cannot tell you how pretty it looks, and that coupled with the beautiful sounds of the night and this orange horizon to our west over the Drakensberg Mountains, it is a beautiful, beautiful setting, that is for sure. It's almost like you just want to sit out here and just turn off everything and spend time in the quiet listening, which is, I think, what we should do. Now that is, like I say, an incredible vista to look upon and gaze upon. There is an atmosphere attached to that, like I say, I can't quite describe. Now, we are going to carry on though, because we are quite far from home, and it's time to start heading back in that direction. Otherwise, I'm going to get back very late. And the camp staff will not be very happy with me if I'm not in time for dinner. So let me start making my way back that way. But what an incredible afternoon. It was a little bit slow to start with tracking the dogs. We had to kind of go back and forth and crash through some thickets, but eventually it paid off, and it was spectacular. Like I said, it actually worked in our favor, because we got there at the right time to have that beautiful golden light on them as the sun was setting, and then into this spectacular moonrise that we've just experienced over the top of them. So it was perfect timing, and I reckon that we're going to get rewarded with something else on the way home. I have a good vibe for tonight. What do you think, Ryan? Think we're going to get something? Good. I reckon I'm going to go along our southern boundary, and I'm going to look for Athena, I'm glad you enjoyed that moonrise with the sounds of nature. It is quite spectacular. Like I said, just sitting here was quite something. It was absolutely beautiful just to sit for that moment and just take in those sounds and listen to what was going on around us and just watch that moon slowly but surely come up over the horizon. Now I forgot that I have to use my spotlight, so the spotlight is a little bit wide because I was trying to illuminate the trees for you to make it a little bit more moody, so I just need to tighten that up, which I've done now. And now we can start scanning for eyes. So we're using the spotlight to look for any signs of little glowing eyes in the darkness. And this road that we're actually on is a good road for the animal that I'm really looking for at night. Now there are a number of different animals, and the other nights lots of you were telling me what you would love to see, and we had porcupines and pangolin and aardvark and all of those. And my one that I want to see is a caracal. Now this road that we're on, at this very junction, a caracal was last seen here. It was actually the last sighting of a caracal that I know of in this area, and it was about, I would say now, about 4 or 5 months ago. And when I used to work at Chitwa, there was actually a caracal that used to hang around Arathusa airstrip, and that caracal was very, very relaxed. It was a calm individual, and the guys used to get it hunting quite often. So we've got a little bronze-winged courser in the road. Hello buddy, I don't want to blind it with my spotlight, but you can see it just sitting in the road. It's one of those nocturnal birds, and there it goes. And that caracal used to sit, sorry, go back to the caracal story. The caracal used to go on the airstrip, and the guys used to often find it hunting there, and they used to follow it much like a leopard. And every time I tried to get to that caracal, as I would get there, they would lose it and it would be gone. So I am definitely trying to find a caracal somewhere around here, and maybe tonight is the night, maybe we get lucky. Although I think any caracal here is going to be a very brave one, because this is right in the heart of Tingana and Shadows territory, and both of those will be a major threat to a caracal. And we've just got to make sure no oncoming traffic. So Ollie, the moon is indeed spectacular, and you're wondering if we're going to notice any different patterns of behavior with the animals. Indeed. So we're going to get a lot of different behavior from different animals. Elephants tend to become a lot more active and a lot more vocal for some reason in full moon periods. I've seen them moving around, and they make quite a bit of noise at night. Now I'm just trying to go slowly because I saw some eyes crossing the road here. It could be a little steenbok or a duiker. Now, unfortunately the bush that we're in here is very, very thick, but sometimes you get little jennets that go up and scurry into a tree and you can actually see them. But it went in here somewhere where it's a little bit too thick to actually see. So yeah, elephants will be a lot more active. You'll find wild dogs, they generally are not hunting at night and not moving around too much at night, whereas in full moon period they could potentially be out and moving and running around. Then you've got the lions and the leopards are going to struggle a little bit. They're going to be actually far less active in terms of hunting, because with the full moon it's so bright that all the other prey animals can actually see quite clearly what's going on. It's even for us as humans, if you come out on a full moon night and you turn off all the lights and you sit there for 15 minutes and you let your eyes adjust, you can actually drive around here without lights and you'll be able to see the roads and see where you're going. So for predators it becomes a lot harder to hunt. The lions and leopards have a lot less success in these full moon periods, and then you'll find that also the prey animals, they tend to actually do a little bit of feeding during the night. So it's not uncommon to find buffalo feeding or zebras feeding, whereas in the cold new moon period often those animals are just hunkering down and trying to find an open section that they're able to just watch out for predators. Right, so we're going to continue our search for the elusive caracal, and while we do that, let's go across to David and see if he's having any luck with some nocturnal creatures.
Another one. Okay, we got an update that the lions have gone flat cat in an area that we cannot reach. It's too thick, it's too dense, so we have moved out of that area now. We're continuing on our search. We're seeing a lot of really cool nocturnal birds, some thickneys, bronze-winged corsets on the road, but we're looking for eyes. We're using the spotlight. and I'm looking for any eyes glaring back at me. It's a lovely warm evening here in the moon is starting to illuminate the bush, but we're hot. We're looking for anything at this stage, looking up in the trees, hoping to maybe spot a bush baby, a lesser galago. It's time for them to become active and start hopping about from tree to tree. And you know what else you can find with a spotlight at this time of the night? Is a chameleon. Chameleons show up almost like a little bit lighter than the leaves that they're on, almost like a white color. It takes I think a bit of a trained eye to spot them. But with a spotlight, you can, sorry, I just got a bug in my mouth. You can actually spot chameleons using the spotlight. So I would love to see a flap neck chameleon. In the Eastern Cape we mostly get dwarf chameleons. The flap neck is quite a bit larger. So it would be fantastic to find one. Come on, chameleons. I'm really impressed with these vehicles. Kitted out with extra spotlights, which is really just helping me right now. I'm still working the handheld spotlight, but these extra LEDs are helping to illuminate the bush for me. Oh, bit of a rough section here. Let me slow down. Don't want Brian to fall off the back. He's done so well. He survived my driving. I think I recognize this area. I think this is quarantine. I really like this area. It's wide open, grassy area with tall trees. We're going to continue working the spotlight, see what else we can spot. It's getting very quiet at this stage. I can hear the cicadas starting to call. It's a small insect. I'm going to turn in here. Oh, I see a light. Eyes. Okay, we seem to have a herd of something. It's important not to completely put the spotlight onto, which I kind of did, not directly into the eyes of prey species. Okay, so we're just going to put the light on the ground here. It says not to put it directly in their eyes. Okay, you can just see those eyes over there. Not very clear, and I can just make out that those are impalas. I don't want to put the spotlight on them because that could blind them and give predators a competitive advantage over them, and we don't want that. Alright, we're going to leave these impalas now, and I'm going to say my goodbye. Thank you very much for joining me on my interview drive, and we're going to send you over to Tristan now. Goodbye.
So, sorry guys, I have no lights there because I was just having a chat to some of the guides in the area. There's a lot of guys that I've guided with for many years that I haven't seen for the last few weeks. So it's just nice to catch up with all of them and see how they're all doing and say hello and maintain the good friendly banter that we have going around here and keep spirits high. And I was also trying to wear these elusive like Karula's tracks are coming north up towards Twin Dams along the Mulawati area, and no sign of Osana. So I think they're somewhere there. I also got a good news report right now that Tundi and her cub have also come back to Chitwa. So it looks like the morning should hold some promise, which is great news. I was kind of hoping that I was going to bump into Karula along the southern boundary and that she was going to just grace us with her presence in this last dying bit of light that we have and in the last moments of drive. But alas, it hasn't happened, and that is the way things go. Oh, sorry about the bumps, everyone. We are on this road, and because of the trucks that drive here to do deliveries to the lodges, they tend to cause a bit of corrugation, and the corrugations make the camera bounce a little bit. So I do apologize if there's a bit of a bouncy feed coming towards you. I'm shortly going to be turning off it anyway. But what a spectacular evening it's been. That moon was just something unbelievable. I absolutely enjoyed seeing that moon rising over the dogs. What a special sighting. And to see wild dogs is always quite something. So I'm really over. So I'm